us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black.
Follow the leader in the leader.
Oh my God.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, 'cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
Protests and anthems, yes, we chanting. A movement of people, it's like we dancing to the ministry of. It's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak the powers even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the poor and where the prisons is. I was told good life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds for D's that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify. With you and God in time, my best align.
Shine, flies.
You are listening to a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, your host and White House correspondent. I'm in touch, and so you be in touch. I hope you follow me on all the social media platforms. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm on the Spill platform, and really excited these days. You can find me on Substack. Just search Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, N-I-I-Q, and boom, bam, boom, there I am. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa.
Sorry, I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
To play KBLA Talk 1580. Pause. See, if you say it too loud, Alexa, she just turns right on. She's always listening. Last but not least, be sure to subscribe to a More Perfect Union podcast. That way you'll never miss an episode. So a community announcement for the folks in Los Angeles, where our home station is. It's important to note that Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass has announced that water is now safe in Palisades homes, highlighting record efficiency for rebuilding 2 months after the fires. Mayor Bass just today announced that the do not drink notice in the Palisades will be lifted tomorrow, Friday, March 7th, as she continues to lead the recovery effort in the Palisades months ahead of expectations. Mayor Bass also highlighted progress and emphasized that the city's commitment to expediting the rebuilding process and getting families back home and back to work are as quickly and safely as possible. And so some good news. That's some good news. That's some welcome news. We need as much good news as possible related to the recovery and rebuild effort following the LA wildfires. And so that is absolutely worth noting. Now, it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Kicking us off, The Verge is reporting that Delta Airlines is betting on blended wing flight to reduce emissions. Delta Airlines is backing a startup that wants to design more fuel-efficient blended wing body aircrafts in hopes of reducing its carbon footprint and making air travel more sustainable. The airline said just today that it's going to help support the development of startup Jet Zero's blended wing body. The blended wing body demonstrator aircraft that aims to cut fuel consumption, emissions, and noise. Delta isn't providing any capital investment in the company, but rather operational support to help make its dream of a blended wing aircraft a reality. Jet Zero will join Delta's Sustainable Skies Lab incubator. Who knew they had anything like that? Isn't that cool? This Sustainable Skies Lab incubator is where it will receive operational expertise from the airline's engineers in the design and construction of a BWB demonstrator aircraft with the aim to test it in 2027. Now, in 2020, you might remember that Delta pledged to spend $1 billion on sustainability efforts, including the Sustainable Sky Labs, with the aim of reaching carbon neutrality by 2050. In 2022, the airline shifted its goals from carbon neutrality to decarbonizing its operations. And so, look, we'll take what we can get, considering, all of the reversals in policies around climate change and the threat of reversals around climate change. You might remember that earlier this year, President Trump made us exit the Paris Climate Agreement again for the second time. And so that means that we're going to have to lean on leaders of industry to do something in the event that other countries around the world follow suit and backslide on commitments around addressing climate change. In other news, speaking of news that is important to people around the world, the State Department plans to close diplomatic missions and fire employees overseas. This news broke earlier this evening. Senior State Department officials, they have drawn up plans to close a dozen consulates overseas by this summer and are considering shutting down many more missions, and what could be a blow to the U.S. government's efforts to build partnerships and gather intelligence. The department also plans to lay off many local citizens who work for its hundreds of missions. These workers make up 2/3 of the agency's workforce, and in many countries, they form the foundation of U.S. diplomats' knowledge of their environment. Now, help me understand. I don't see how any of this makes America more secure. I don't see how any of this furthers our national security interest. I don't know how any of this makes us a world superpower. If anything, this kind of isolationism, it makes us vulnerable. The shrinking, as reported by the New York Times, is part of both President Trump's larger slashing of the federal government and his American first foreign policy, in which the United States ends or curtails once important ways of exercising global influence, including through democracy, human rights, and aid work. The move comes at a time when China, the main rival of America, has overtaken the United States in a number of global diplomatic posts. China has forged strong ties across nations, especially in Asia and Africa, and exerts greater power in international organizations. And so, for all this tough talk about China, moves like this fundamentally make China a stronger global player. Make that make sense. And so, as we think about the impacts of these thoughtless policies, they feel very knee-jerk. Keep in mind that there's not just American federal workers who are impacted by this at home and abroad, but also folks in country around the world that have been the glue in many cases to our mission work around the world may also be without a job. Again, I don't know how this makes us any safer. Don't know. But what I do know is when we come forward, we're going to have a great conversation with former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. He's now one of my distinguished colleagues here at KBLA, hosting the Jesse Jackson Jr. show at 1 p.m. Pacific time. It's 4 p.m. Eastern. He is also on WVON in Chicago. We'll also be joined with Dr. Ravi Perry, who's a professor of political science at Howard University. We're going to do a week in review with these two brothers who have a lot to say. We've got a lot to talk about. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. Who cares about the Black community in Altadena? We do. On Saturday, March 8th at 10 a.m., it's the premiere of Conversation Live, Altadena Rising with James Farr. This new weekly show will explore the deep roots and resilience of Altadena's Black community as we track its recovery and reimagine its future. From relief efforts to rebuilding, we're raising up voices, stories, and solutions to build back Black Altadena better and stronger than ever. It's Conversation Live, Altadena Rising with James Farr, every Saturday at 10 a.m. beginning Saturday, March 8th, with an encore presentation, Sundays at noon.
James Farr, the man who is the voice for Black Los Angeles.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm. If you own a timeshare, don't miss this public service announcement from Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group.
If you receive an unsolicited phone call or mail piece to discuss selling, renting, or especially canceling your timeshare, don't fall for it. If you really want out of your timeshare, hang the phone up immediately or throw that mail piece in the trash and contact your timeshare resort or Wesley Financial Group for assistance with your timeshare. As the only Inc. 500 timeshare cancellation company, our knowledge, experience, and results has made Wesley a trusted resource for over 40,000 families we've helped get out of their timeshare. Give us a call and I'll send you our timeshare exit information kit free with the straight facts about your timeshare and all of your options for cancellation.
Call for your free info kit, 800-511-2112. That's 800-511-2112. 800-511-2112.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's cal-cruise-news.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions.
The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We have no permanent friends or permanent enemies. Only permanent interests as we effort to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and delighted to welcome to the show my friend, my brother, my colleague, Jesse Jackson Jr. He is the host of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show right here on KBLA Talk 1580, weekdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. For folks in Chicago, you can also catch him on WVON in drive time there. Welcome to the show, Jesse Jr.
Dr. Quartelai, thank you for having me on A More Perfect Union.
Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for also joining me along with Dr. Ravi Perry. He is professor of political science at the Mecca, Howard University. He is no stranger to our show. He is a friend of the show, and I couldn't think of a better political science professor to have on to help us make sense out of this week than Dr. Ravi Perry. Welcome.
I'm glad to be back. Let's get to it.
Well, let's do it. And so Axios is reporting on how the House voted to censure Representative Al Green with the help of Democrats. A bipartisan majority of House members voted today to censure Representative Al Green after he was escorted out of President Trump's speech to a joint session of Congress for repeated heckling. When they say heckling, what Representative Green said during the speech is that you don't have a mandate. When President Trump claimed to have a mandate, I want to ask the former congressman to take a crack at this first. How would you have voted if you were still in Congress?
I would not have voted to censure Al Green, whom I know very well and have profound respect for. He may be one of the last true fighters that we have in the Congress of the United States that represent the resistance. That joint session of Congress is the gift that keeps on giving, particularly for us, because it shows a clarity on where the Democrats really stand. I don't recall a member of Congress for the 17 years that I served there, including Joe Wilson, being escorted out in this particular case or in that particular case in 2009 of the State of the Union address delivered by President Barack Obama, when Joe Wilson interrupted his speech, calling him a liar. And I'm not so sure that anyone has stood at that podium and told more lies than what we heard in the joint session of Congress, or we've heard over the course of the campaign that made that joint session possible. So I would have voted to support Al Green. I would not have voted for his censure on the basis of precedence. We have not thrown a member out of a joint session of Congress in recent memory. Furthermore, remember, the President of the United States is in the House of Representatives by invitation of the House. Al Green is a member of the House. It is our chamber. It is not the president's chamber. And so a precedence has been established by a number of members over time who've said things or done things, but no one's ever been escorted out as far as I can tell.
Speaking of precedent, speaking of history, Dr. Perry, I want to tap your brain on this. Help us to understand, to what extent does the censure of Representative Al Green, to what extent is it consistent with the sort of backlash that we're seeing, not just in government, but we're seeing it in the private sector, we're seeing in academia? Is this just the latest example of a continuing trend?
Yeah, I mean, some call it the unblackening of America. And yes, this is just simply the latest trend. I mean, I was quite surprised that Democrats joined in this effort, including one of my favorites, the longest serving Democratic woman in the House of Representatives, my hometown Congresswoman, Marcy Kaptur in Northwest Ohio, who was one of those 10 who voted for it. And, you know, I haven't yet gotten her or her staff on the phone, but I certainly intend to. I don't understand what the advantage was in doing so. You already knew that this was going to pass. You know, the Republicans are in lockstep. We're going to already support this. And so the censure was going to go forward. So why having 10 Democrats join them? You know, it reminds me of the Democrats who still think that civility and decorum and the normal rules of the House from the 80s and the 90s are still at play. And they're not. People seem to just not want to acknowledge the fact that ever since Donald Trump became a national pariah, really, in our American politics, beginning in 2015, the rules of the game have changed, including the rules of the House. And it was quite unfortunate to say that he was heckling when he was just simply trying to make a point. Yes, it was disruptive, but it wasn't permanently disruptive. It was disruptive for a few seconds. I don't even know if it even lasted as much as a minute. And yes, he did not sit down immediately when requested, but he eventually would have. I mean, he has a damn cane, for God's sake. He wouldn't have been standing that long anyway. And so the idea that he was going to, you know, somehow just be this disruptor is ridiculous when you have people like Lauren Boebert, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and so many others that have been far more disruptive, and not just disruptive, but disrespectful. The way in which Greene was disruptive also, I think, has just been ignored. I expect the GOP to do what they're going to do, particularly when it has to do with a Black representative. But, you know, I was very enchanted by the Democrats because, one, there was nothing for them to gain. So I don't know if they think that they're somehow going to get some cool points from I know 3 of them are from, you know, states that certainly supported Donald Trump, but also districts that went for Donald Trump. Again, my hometown Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur only won by a few hundred votes, but she's been in office literally as long as I have been alive. And for her and others to not understand that the politics of today, in today's House of Representatives, today's Senate chamber with Republican control under Donald Trump as their leader, is not the same as 1982 when you were first elected. Shame on them.
Shame on them. Well, there are a number of folks that are just underwhelmed by the Democrats and what seems like an inability for them to match the energy of the people. And so earlier today, Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, in his weekly press conference, went out of his way to talk about Trump's strategy, the flood the zone strategy. And he talked about how it's designed to disorient people and create this appearance of inevitability. And he went out of his way to make clear that not a single Project 2025 bill has passed and not one legislative accomplishment to Trump's name to date. He also went on to talk about the over 100 cases that have been filed and how Trump has not been winning these cases. He says the fact is that he's losing to judges that were appointed by Reagan, by Bush, by Trump. 2 cases went to the Supreme Court, both of which the Office of Special Counsel case and the USAID funding freeze case. Both cases he lost to the Supreme Court. And so if this is the case, Jesse Jackson Jr., if this is the case that the emperor has no clothes, then why does it feel that President Trump is getting stronger and stronger with every news cycle?
Luke, trust your feelings. Trust your feelings. That's the forces with us, but trust your feelings on this question. I associate everything my words and everything that I say with what Dr. Perry said, but there may also be something else at play. Donald Trump is transactional. It's hard for those of us with a moral compass to fully appreciate just how transactional he is. And so I'm going to keep a close eye on these 10 Democrats that censured Al Green. There's something that they want. There's something that they want to work with the Republican majority on. And they wanted to send a signal. And the easiest signal was to join them in censure against Al Green. Those 10 Democrats, look for them, I don't know when, but look for them to walk in and out of the White House at some point in time, talking about bipartisanship, talking about getting things done in spite of the fact that there is a resistance movement in the country. Expect that. Now, there were a couple of other ways that they could have sent the same signal, but without the transaction. And that is for the young African-American kid who had the brain tumor and the cancer and was awarded the Secret Service honorary badge or position. They could have stood for him, not for what Donald Trump did, or because he was being used as a prop, or because brain cancer research was canceled under Trump's missives, his executive orders. They could have stood for the kid. 60 blacks in Congress in the Democratic caucus could have stood and led the Democratic Party to say, you know, we honor this kid, because that kid needs to look back, Make-A-Wish Foundation, make a wish. He needs to look back and see that African Americans, his own people, supported him. That did not happen. They could have stood for the kid who got accepted to the military academy. Unrelated to Donald Trump's politics, just the humanness of being accepted and given that honor before the nation. They chose not to. They chose not to stand for the older woman whose son was released from Russian control. I'm only talking about signals. That does not mean you're joining Donald Trump. There were opportunities to send signals, but not at the expense of Al Green and his very legitimate protest that he had in the Congress of the United States. So we have to look for the transaction that those 10 Democrats may engage in over the next couple of years.
When we come forward, I want to give Dr. Perry a chance to respond to that. Would he have stood for the kid with brain cancer? Would he have stood for a number of those people who were being recognized in the box on Tuesday night by President Trump? We'll get a sense of where Dr. Perry stands on that and more. You are listening to and streaming a More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with my guests, Jesse Jackson Jr. and Dr. Ravi Perry, when we come forward.
If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered about issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, you tuned into the right place. A More Perfect Union continues when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. DeSoto County, Mississippi leaders are planning to sue over new legislative maps creating a majority black district. The Board of Supervisors has hired legal counsel to challenge the plan ahead of the August 5th primaries. Elk Grove, California schools are investigating a teacher for sharing racist material during a Black History Month lesson. The Catherine Albiani Middle School teacher is on leave and the district has condemned the content. Black Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown is joining 22 attorneys general opposing a lawsuit that could weaken the National Labor Relations Board power to protect workers' rights to unionize. They urge the court to deny YAP USA Automotive Systems' request to block NLRB proceedings. An African-American Rep, Kwesi Mfume, and Rep. Gerald Connolly are pushing for an inquiry into Trump-era federal job cuts, accusing President Trump and Elon Musk of harming the country while Congress does nothing. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The 210 is tough. This is the westbound side getting out of Pasadena. Delays away from Lincoln as you continue all the way to Hubbard Street. Eastbound delays starting in Sunland. This is getting away from Sunland Boulevard as you travel all the way towards the 2. A little opening, more slowing in Pasadena from Mountain all the way to Waterman Avenue in San Bernardino. And it's very tough on that 91 freeway. This is making your way eastbound out of Carson with delays from Avalon. Pockets slowing beyond all the way to Green River.
Imagine a photograph of your favorite place in California. Then right in the middle of it, one piece of litter. Litter has no place in our lives, not one piece. Together, let's change that. Clean California. Zero litter is the goal. CleanCA.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
With President Obama in the house, Clippers guard James Harden delivered a spectacular performance Wednesday night at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. Harden dropped 50 points in the Clippers' 123-115 win over Detroit, helping the Clippers to snap a 3-game losing streak. The 35-year-old Harden is the first Clippers player to reach 50 since Lou Williams did it at Golden State on January 10, 2018. Obama, who sat next to Clippers owner Steve Ballmer on the baseline, saw Harden make 14 to 24 shots, including 6 3-pointers. He also made 16 of 20 free throws. Harden ranks 4th in the NBA in 50-point games. Wilt Chamberlain is the all-time leader with 118, followed by Michael Jordan with 31 and Kobe with 25. The Lakers are home tonight against the New York Knicks at Crypto.com. The Lakers, number 2 in the Western Conference, are going for their 8th straight win. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
They say the hardest part of getting something done is getting started. Well, we did that 30 years ago when California first took on the tobacco industry. Now, smoking is down 60%, lung cancer 42%. A couple of our cities have already ended tobacco sales. A California without big tobacco isn't just possible, it's already happening. See our progress at undo.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hit me!
National news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I am delighted to be in conversation with my brothers, Jesse Jackson Jr., host of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, which you can hear right here on KBLA Talk 1580 weekdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Is that 3 p.m. in Chicago? Did I get my math right?
Yes, sir.
And Dr. Ravi Perry, professor of political science at the Mecca, Howard University. And, you know, we are doing a week in review. There was a lot that happened this week. I know we've all been flooded with videos and hot takes on our social media timelines. But one thing that we might have missed on our timeline was somewhat of a win for Democrats that we're not really talking about. 95.5 WSB, Atlanta's news and talk station, is reporting that Senator Warnock has won a battle to get some CDC workers their jobs back after the DOJ cuts. Just yesterday, some CDC workers who were let go in the federal jobs cut from DOJ got an email saying that they were, quote, clear to return to work. After public pressure from Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock, the Trump administration partially reinstated some of the CDC's probationary workers. Some of the workers who were reinstated were young scientists at local health departments and lab workers who helped on investigations in public health threats. Jesse Jackson Jr., why aren't we hearing more about this? Why aren't Democrats, sort of putting this point on the board firmly in their column?
Because no one would be covering it. And obviously on KBLA, we are. There are other victories, not inconsistent with what Senator Warnock and some of these fighters are really putting up, trying to save jobs, but also save some of the priorities that matter. I mean, just 40 days ago, we're just talking 40 days, not actions from Congress, but executive orders issued by the President of the United States. And I don't think we can underestimate the significance of executive orders. The Emancipation Proclamation was an executive order. It didn't require Congress. It didn't require the approval of the courts in order to move it forward. And so executive orders do matter. Some of them will fail in court. Others of them will be successful until Congress takes action. But just think about it. Imagine the world where Kamala Harris were president. Well, the Philadelphia Eagles would have been invited to the White House. Imagine the world where we would not be boycotting Target or even discussing DEI or the future of HBCUs or funding medical research at Harry, Morehouse, Howard University, Drew Schools of Medicine. Imagine a world where a president of the United States and the Secretary of Health and Human Services would actually be concerned about a measles outbreak in Texas, and we'd be sending all kinds of people in orange and blue suits down there trying to figure out how to round up or cordon off a certain area of the state. None of that is happening, and some of the consequences of the behavior of this administration, from my perspective, are just simply irresponsible. The amount of irresponsibility drowns out a success story like the one that Raphael Warnock was able to accomplish at the CDC in Atlanta.
Dr. Perry?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's just so much of an onslaught of inaccurate, inappropriate kinds of news stories that the few instances of Democrats like Senator Warnock trying to save a few jobs, it just doesn't rise to the pale of national coverage. That's the challenge that Democrats have had. They have constantly had since 2015 a challenge in confronting Donald Trump. They put up two of the most dynamic, powerful women in the world to run against him. Both of them failed, and they have attempted to have talking heads and pundits and lawyers go after him in a variety of ways. And in many ways, they too have not quite hit the needle. And I think that what has changed dramatically for Democrats is that facts no longer matter. It's sad to say as a professor, but facts don't matter apparently to much of the American public. Now, I distinguish as a political scientist the difference between the American public and the American voting public, but the media does not. And the media engages everybody. And I was just talking with a friend earlier today is that, with the exception and the very few exceptions of Black media like this here at KBLA, most people are not getting education along with their information. What they're getting is selected information, and that information they may or may not know what to do with based on their critical thinking skills that they have. And so Democrats can have a win here, can have a win there, but if the mainstream media doesn't cover it, then it really doesn't go anywhere for them politically. And B, even if they do cover it, it's such small potatoes given how the mainstream media has chosen to portray Trump and give him constant free all kinds of advertising in addition to hours and hours on television. The joint session of Congress this week was a 90-minute speech, which was excessively long, and full of lies and inaccuracies and exaggerations. And yes, while there are moments of humility and humanity and symbolic gestures to people who have lost loved ones and young people who are trying to rise up in their careers and their lives, the reality is that Democrats have not been able to figure out how do you respond to a president who is very effective at weaponizing the media to support his aims. He's been doing it for a decade now, and he is the one who's winning.
This question has been on my mind all week, and Jesse Jackson Jr., I'm so glad that you are here to help me unpack this. It seems to me, based upon just some of the press conferences that I've covered this week, including Leader Jeffries' weekly press conference earlier today, where he said, quotes, "I'm not going to be disoriented. We are going to push back and the American people are going to win," referring to the flood the zone strategy that he says is designed to disorient people and create this appearance of inevitability. It seems to me that leaders in Washington are a little preoccupied counting votes. What do they need to do to win back the less than handful of seats in order to take control of the House? If they are preoccupied with counting votes and not focus, at least they're not communicating a focus on the next pay period. They're thinking about the next election. And so I want to ask you to keep us honest historically. The distinction between the role of our political leaders and movement leaders. I think there's a lot of folks out there that are wanting folks like Leader Jeffries to be a movement leader. They don't want him to just be the minority leader. They want him to be the leader of the opposition. And if history serves me correctly, at least, a lot of movement building, quite frankly, happens largely outside of Washington, not inside of Washington. But keep us honest. You're the son of civil rights icon. You know this better than a lot of other people.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the question. And again, let me associate myself with everything Dr. Perry said. I think, Dr. Perry, you really don't need me to be a guest on your show today. Dr. Perry's doing a fantastic job. Let me be clear. In 1984 and 88, when my father delivered a speech about a rainbow coalition, and he talked about the patches, red, yellow, brown, black, and white were all precious in God's sight. And when the farmer comes together with the urban area, and when the black comes together with the white, and when the Protestant, the Catholic, and the Jew come together, when we all come together, we form a magnificent rainbow coalition. Well, Dad was counting votes. That in these major cities, no African-American mayor can win on their own. They build a coalition of Hispanics and progressive whites, and that's how you get Eric Adams, Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Los Angeles. That's how we get the mayor of Atlanta, Georgia. They don't win on black votes only. They win in these coalitions. But I think in the modern era, we might have to change from a strategy of just organizing votes to organizing pain. And I don't think Leader Jeffries sees that. That is, women are in a tremendous amount of pain right now as a result of losing freedom over their own bodies. The LGBT community, it may represent a rainbow patch in the Rainbow Coalition quilt, but they're in a lot of pain over having their basic civil rights denied. African Americans who attend historically black colleges and universities, and the president's essential statement on X the other day that protest will be met on campuses with a fierceness that includes removing students from campus and even sending some students back to their countries if they get caught protesting and exercising their basic First Amendment rights. And when I left home at age 18 and went to college, North Carolina A&T State University, the greatest university in the world, somewhere between Howard and Morehouse, by the way, right there in Greensboro, we began thinking about pain. Students are going to start thinking and feeling the pain. Cuts to Social Security, pain. Medicare, pain. If Leader Jeffries and Democrats begin organizing people not just around their color, but around their pain. They'll move from counting votes to counting coalitions that are being devastated every day. Groups of people that when the pain comes together, we're going to need someone in the Democratic Party to emerge who feels our pain and can build the coalition, not simply around the idea of race, but the massive restructuring of the federal government, which Dr. Perry knows has been so central since the Civil War and even leading up to the Civil War in guaranteeing the basic human rights of every American, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. The 14th Amendment is on the table in this national discussion. States' rights is on the table in this national conversation. Taking parts of the federal government and closing the Department of Education. I mean, I have not recovered from the idea that he, if he hasn't already today, is issuing an executive order to dismantle the Department of Education. What that does for HBCUs is an uncertainty in the remaining HBCUs that exist, let alone removing their research funding from the NIH and other institutions. They are in a lot of pain. They're in so much pain, they don't even know how to respond. They can't organize themselves to deal with what it means to lose research dollars. Now, we're not discussing Yale's research dollars or Harvard's research dollars. We're discussing the research dollars that the Institute of Medicine in 2001, when they released a report based on facts that African Americans are dying at a higher rate than every other group in the country, and that we need more doctors, more nurses, more educators working in the African American community, convincing African Americans to meet a primary care physician, and the resources that were going to those particular institutions are now being eliminated in the name of DEI. Man, that is a lot of pain. And I'm afraid the Democrats in Washington, in their bubble, they're not feeling the pain, and there will be consequences for their, how shall I say it? They're ignoring, or their lack of understanding, or their lack of empathy, or they're talking through talking points and not talking to the pain that people are experiencing. I want to close on this. James Baldwin once covered Martin Luther King, I think in Birmingham or Montgomery, at the church that he was speaking at the time. And he said, I'm trying to figure out what it is about Dr. King that makes him so special. James Baldwin said, can he preach? Yes. Can he move a crowd? Yes. Can he do this? Yes. Does he have all of the techniques and skills of our modern preachers? He said, yes. He said, what made Dr. King different, however, in this wonderful article that he wrote, he said, Dr. King suffered with the people. And in suffering with them and suffering together, he felt their pain. And therefore, the depression that he was in, he raised the people out of the depression because they were in it together. They weren't separate and apart from it. I hope Hakeem Jeffries and the Democratic leadership in the Congress understands the importance of building a coalition around the pain that people are feeling.
Poetic. Dr. Ravi, in our final minute, I want to give you the final word.
I mean, organizing pain. Jesse Jackson Jr., please come to my class anytime. We will be thrilled to have you. No, but seriously, that is a real op-ed. We need to figure out how to talk about that some more, because what we're talking about is ultimately the job of coalition building. And that if you do not bring people together in American politics, you simply cannot win. I think part of the challenge that Democrats have in Congress is that they are too much not only in the bubble in Washington, D.C. here, but they're in the bubble of their districts, many of which for the leadership are in the East and the West Coast. And as a kid from Ohio, I happen to believe very much in the power of the Midwest and other parts of the country where there are more higher numbers of everyday kinds of individuals that don't exist here in the Beltway of DC, who are struggling, who do have that pain. And it's one thing to talk about it and to see it on TV. It's another thing to drive down the street and see people in rural Mississippi still having outhouses as bathrooms. It's another thing to drive down the street in urban Detroit and see neighborhoods that still have not been refurbished from 1967 riots. And if you don't do this, then you really can't speak to the people. And so I would encourage Democrats to go to have tours just like Congress members do tours around the world for this incident or this problem or this war zone, we should do the same thing in our communities and throughout the United States of America, where they have tour groups, including my frat brother, Leader Jeffries, go to these certain communities and actually do walking tours with local leaders, state and federal leaders as well, to show that you understand that pain that Jesse Jackson Jr. was talking about, and that you show up to people in their communities, in their hometowns, where they're experiencing it. Talking about it on a microphone from Washington, D.C. is not going to do very much.
My thanks to Dr. Ravi Perry, professor of political science at the Howard University. Also, my friend and brother and colleague, Jesse Jackson Jr., host of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show right here on KBLA, 1 p.m. Pacific, weekdays. God bless you both. Thank you for all that you do to build a more perfect union.
Thank you for having us, Dr. Perry.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Quartelai.
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Looking for a smart way to grow your savings and support your community? City First Bank's 3-month mission-driven CD offers 4% APY, giving you a strong return while backing businesses and communities that need it most. You will earn more and make a difference. Grow your money with purpose. Open your 3-month CD today by visiting cityfirstbank.com or visiting your local branch. City First Bank, banking with purpose, investing in community. Member FDIC, rates subject to change, terms apply. Visit cityfirstbank.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and you. Working to build a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. It's time for the quiet part out loud. And it's not every day that you see a sister joining the ownership of a franchise. Serena Williams is joining the ownership group of the Toronto Tempo, the WNBA's first, count them, first Canadian franchise. The Griot is reporting that Serena Williams will partner with Larry Tannenbaum, chairman of Kilmer Sports Ventures, for the Tempo, who will begin playing in the 2026 season. Williams, one of the greatest tennis players in history, will play an active role in the future jersey design. How fun is that? She also made her professional tennis debut, as we all know, at the age of 14, at a tournament in Canada in 1995. Did you know that? I didn't know that. And her last event was the 2022 U.S. Open. It was the 2022 U.S. Open, and Williams won 23 Grand Slam single titles, the most of a woman in the sports open era, plus another 14 major trophies in women's doubles alongside her older sister, Venus. She is the latest former pro athlete to join a WNBA ownership group. Magic Johnson, Tom Brady, Dwayne Wade, and Renee Montgomery already are owners. And this isn't the first ownership venture for Williams. She has a stake in the Angel City FC women's soccer team. She also holds a minority stake in the Miami Dolphins, as well as TGL's Los Angeles Golf Club, the virtual golf league headed by PGA star Tiger Williams and Rory McIlroy. And so she and her husband, Alexis Ohanian, they donated millions of dollars to Virginia's women's basketball program last year. He graduated from that school. And so, you know, it's good to see folks investing in the kind of world that they want to see. You know, Serena Williams is clear-eyed in terms of the challenges that women of color, particularly Black women, have in professional sports. And while she is on the circuit, making clear what her story was and what challenges she had to overcome, she's also investing in sports organizations to create a culture, to create a climate where other women don't have to deal with that stuff. That's a demonstration of how you build a more perfect union, doing what you can from where you are with what you have. We'll have to end it there. My thanks to my guests, Jesse Jackson Jr. and Dr. Ravi Perry. And in our first hour, Ebony McMorris of AURN and Jaron Keith Gaynor from the GRIO. Remember, again, don't panic, organize. Do what you can from where you are with what you have. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte. You've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.